Okay, welcome to J115, Introduction to Corrections. And over the next 11 weeks, I hope to be able to share with each of you details that will be beneficial to help you towards your career goals. Many of you will be correction officers. Some will be law enforcement officers. Some will be parole officers. Some will be probation officers. And so we're going to have a chance to visit all of those areas during the course of the next 11 weeks. So I am going to go ahead and get started, try to keep as close to 9:30 as I can, but may go a little bit over. Okay. First of all, this first page that you're looking at, it should be familiar to you because it is the course homepage. One of the first things you'll see on the right side is my name, my phone number, and then a very important note that means what it says. Students can feel free to call me, text me, or email me any hour of the day except the 25th hour of the day. If you do decide to call me or text me, or email me, make sure you indicate what class you're in, because of the fact that I have, as I said earlier, 100 students, and I have 6 classes. So I have 2 sections, as I said, of Intro to Corrections, Sections 1 and Sections 2. So feel free to do that. And students who know me, they know that I mean what I say. As my children will tell you, my dad has a policy, and that policy is he says what he means, and he means what he says. And so then I want to visit another requirement, because a student asked me, does this have to be in APA format? And well, first I'm going to say is that you need to conduct research. So then the sole textbook, sole source of your paper shouldn't be the book Corrections, which is a textbook. There was some confusion about what chapters you read this week. It's chapter 1, not chapter 2. I corrected that and changed that. Someone brought it to my attention. But anyway, when you write your papers, make sure you follow the details. And I provide rubrics to help you with that. If you do not conduct research, you will lose 2 points. That's not in the rubric, but that's additional information for you. One other thing I will tell you is never use Wikipedia as a reference or a citation. Wikipedia is very unreliable. It is not an academic source to receive information that we professors accept. So do not use it. You will lose points for that as well. Also, all written assignments, this is the point I was making earlier, should be in APA format. And I provide resources here to help you with APA. That means citations in the body and references at the end. And also, you need to make sure you have a cover sheet. I'm going to take away a point if you don't have a cover sheet, because that's really part of it, and I'm going to modify this language pretty soon. The next bit of information is assistance to help you with tutoring, to help you with research, and I give you links that you can use to prepare your papers. There's a writing guide that's available to help you, and there are all kinds of people here. We have peers who are your classmates who are able to do well in classes and are able to help you in peer mentoring. When I was in law school, and it happened when I first came to Rasmussen College, one of the faculty members who was here already partnered with me to help me to learn the process. And that's what peer mentoring will do, and will help you a lot, a whole lot. Then again, the information about tutoring, And I will make an announcement about tutoring. Tutoring is not just for a student who's having trouble. Tutoring is also something that will help you as a student to climb up the ladder. There are students who have a B. They end up getting an A because they get a tutor to help them. The point of the matter is I would maximize my GPA if it was me trying to do the best I possibly can. And then finally we get to the rubrics for each of the assignments, including week 1, the written assignment. I tell you how many points you get for doing one thing, and then the next thing you get 16, and then you end up getting 5 points for APA. So if you don't have APA, you're going to end up losing points right off the bat. And you go down the list for, it's right there in front of you. I sent it to you, but you will see throughout, okay? And then I gave you for your course project, week 2. Now notice this, week 1, there is no assignment for the course project, but week 1 is an introduction because I want students to be aware that I am going to give you all the details to help you to do well. Each of these weeks of your projects, week 2, week 4, week 7, and week 9. Week 9 is the final one, and you're going to have assignments independent of each of them in the modules. Next week, you will have an assignment that I will cover during next week's lecture, when I actually cover my first lecture. So then your course project is broken down into these weeks. You do not see week 1 in there. You do not see week 3. You do not see week 5. You do not see week 8. You see week 9. You don't see 10 or 11. But again, you'll see when you get to those as well. Then there's a discussion post. As you already know, the discussion post, the initial post was due yesterday. And then your reply post is due by Saturday at 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. And then this is about your live classroom sessions. Today we're doing open house. And then next week, starting at 8:30 Central, we will do our first lecture. And all the even weeks, week 2, week 4, 6, 8, and 10. I encourage you to come. I encourage you. I say it over and over and over until they change the requirement to require students to attend. Some students don't, but the students who come, they get the best information. Now, I will tell you this, is that also in this box, as well as me sending to you, I will have a link to the recording that you can see. But remember this, if you are looking at the recording, you're going to be looking at something that you don't have an ability at the time you're looking at it to have input. If you are in the live lecture, you have a chance to have input. And I personally, when I was in school, we didn't have this because it didn't exist then, but if I was in school, I would have utilized it because I'm hungry for knowledge. I like to learn stuff. Okay, so now let's get over here. We talk about the writing process. I provide you with resources. If you click on this, just to show you, it gives you the writing process. You can review the writing guide. Run your papers through Grammarly. Very important that you check the plagiarism box so that you can see, not that here's the deal. You might take material from your research. You might even give credit for it, but your paper is primarily that. Then it's going to pick up that you plagiarize, not in terms of cheating, but what it's going to tell me is that there's not enough critical thinking in your paper, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Very important. What we want to teach you while you're in this school so that when you get out of here, you will have critical thinking as one of your key issues that you need to be able to master, because employers are looking for people to hire who are critical thinkers. And if you have a question about critical thinking and you want more information, reach out to me. I'll provide you with some more resources. We have plenty of resources that I can direct you to that will break down critical resources. You don't have to go to Google. We have information that our school has put together to help you with that. But Grammarly, I run the papers through Grammarly, and I will take off percentages of points. If your Grammarly percentage is too high, you'll lose those percentage points in your grade. I won't even worry about whether or not you satisfied the rubric. I will look at this and you will lose points from that. Make corrections after you submit it to the writing lab. If you submit papers to the writing lab, make sure you have enough time that they get it back to you. Remember, your written assignments are due Sunday night, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time, the week after you start working on them. Make corrections and then submit your draft to me. Then there is APA, and as I said already, APA, there's a guide in here. There's more details. If you were to click on this, and I'm not going to click on it, it will take you to a source that will help you with APA. It shows you how to format your papers. It'll tell you about having a cover sheet, and it actually has a template to help you and guide you in terms of it. Okay. Then there's a student resource sheet, which basically we call it the 5 fingers thing, and you see why here. For student success, palmed, right in the middle of the palm, you'll see as I scroll down, peer mentoring. Peer mentoring is experienced student and certified tutors who can share inside scoop on what students can do to be successful. How do they know? Because they did it already. Peer mentors can direct students to resources that will help you, and they can also support you personally as someone who's been there, done that as well. So then in the palm of that, on the fingers, you have your advisors, you have your guides, home page, LLS, library and learning resources. You have your student success guide, which gives you some clues of things that if you get into the habit of doing, you will be successful. Library and learning answers, questions you have. And then your guide, your writing guide to help you that I referred to a little earlier. These are all things that will help you throughout, not just in this class, but in others. Now, I got 2 more announcements I want to go over. First one is the one I sent you that gave you an introduction to the course. And I highlighted some very important things that you should do. And you should make sure that you have done those things and get into the habit of doing those things. And then I have down here your information regarding lectures, which start next week at 8:30 Central Standard to 9:30 p.m. or maybe a little longer. Most of the time in this class, once we get past the first open house, it usually goes an hour. Sometimes it goes even less than that, depending on what happens there. To begin the course, click on the Lessons tab, and then check the Get Started folder. That you should have done already. The syllabus, which we're going to go over in just a few minutes, for some important points that I want to bring to your attention. Okay. And now we come to the all-important, let's see what happened to it. There we go. Week 1 announcement. Every week you'll see an announcement like this. And that announcement will tell you what the topic is of the week, as this week, correctional system and its history. Tells you what to read, section 1 of your text, and to complete the activities, an introduction to the correction system, and a historical perspective. Now, these are not graded items, but these are things that will help you. And then I talk about the fact that we have a lecture. Then your discussion post, justification for punishment. I have discovered from the ones that I have that the biggest justification for punishment that people have written about and the approach that should be taken is rehabilitation, followed by retribution, but some punishment. But most of you, and I agree. I commented about that as well. Is that doesn't mean that those who chose other methods, but justification for punishment in terms of rehabilitating people is something that you'll hear me talk about during the course of this quarter. Now, again, I repeat, that doesn't mean that the people who take a different position are wrong, but that's the beautiful part about the whole process, is that you have a chance to not only present your position, but then to support it with evidence or reasons why you think so. So your initial post was due yesterday, 11:59 p.m., and many of you have. And then your reply post I do every Saturday, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time as well. So now we get down to the written assignments, elements of the correctional system, and then there is a quiz, and I'll discuss that in a few minutes. Now, I do recommend that when you do the quiz, that you try to do it at the end of the week. There are some students who jump right in because it looked like, oh, it's 10 questions. Don't do that because you want to score high on them, but you won't do that until you've gone through and I love more than one reply post. Thank you for bringing that up. You don't get a higher grade, but I encourage. That's an excellent point. Many of my students, and I let you know in my comments that I appreciate it, because what you do by doing that is you make the discussion forum more interesting. Remember what the purpose of discussion posts are. Because we're not together in one room, it's a form of exchanging ideas and information between your classmates. You don't get a chance to see your classmates' papers, but you do get a chance to see their comments and positions that they take in terms of discussion posts. So that's a very, very good question. Thank you so much for doing that, because it is very, 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 very important. I encourage it. I encourage it with all my heart. And the other thing is I like also posts that are well written. I gave you a rubric for it, but think about it. The answer to a question is not yes or no. It's yes or no, but then elaborate on it. Provide evidence why you say yes or why you take a position. Give me enough information. It's not a good enough answer to answer yes or no. I want to know details. And remember, this is you communicating with me and your fellow classmates. So excellent, excellent, excellent. So yes. So I do want to see that. I have had students to do as many as 5. I had one student one quarter, and never forget her. And she went on to graduate with honors. She was a dean's list person. And she used to always comment on at least, I think, 6 to 7. And they weren't like really brief. She would, I used to tell her I appreciated her comments so much. It was like having an additional assistant in the class. So it's good. So the answer is yes, yes. But, and then so I said you will be completing a course project. You will review the introduction this week. And then I said this assignment is also due Sunday. Well, in reality, yes and no, you're not getting it graded. But, and there are students that say, hey, and you know what, it prompts students to ask me. And when they ask me, then I get a chance to make my announcement that I want to make to students, is that it is important for you to understand from the beginning, from the start of this course, what the project is all about, and to understand the areas that you can write in. And I'm going to get into that. I don't want to jump the gun on that. And then finally it says an open house, which is now. And then my motto. I'm going to conclude this session today, and I'm going to talk about why I say adversity is a springboard to success. So hey, let's agree from the beginning that we're going to start strong, that we're going to finish strong, and that whatever happens in between, if you need support or help, I am here. I already said from the beginning how you can reach me right here in the beginning, any hour of the day, except the 25th hour of the day. Student asked me, why do you exempt the 25th hour of the day? I turn around and ask the next question. How many hours are there in a day? And they said 24. So then they said, oh, so then you mean 1 o'clock in the morning? I said, that's not the hour of the day. That's the next day. So what does that mean? It means 24/7. It means, are you serious, Professor Wright? Nope, I'm not serious. I'm Professor Wright. I don't know serious. That's a joke. But I am seriously speaking about what I say. I mean what I say, and I say what I mean. I said that earlier, and if you listen to the archive, you'd hear me say that. And that's it. So anyway, so now let me just for a minute go in and show you, before I get into some other things, your course calendar. Now, your course calendar is populated with everything. Now, I had a student ask me already, he says, when are the assignments due? I can't tell from the calendar. I said, the day that you see the subject on, that's the day it is due. So you should be reading by starting Monday. Your initial post should be due on Tuesday. But just in case, click on it, and it tells you more details about it. Okay. Then we have your initial post, and then the open house is in when your reply post. And then we get to your written assignment that's due the 8th, which is Sunday. I already gave you the information, tells you how many pages, and then I tell you I'm more interested in your critical thinking, and I've already made an announcement about that. I'm going to talk about that again some more. APA citations and references with a cover sheet as well. You already have seen the rubric on that. And then there's a quiz, and you do that quiz. Now, as I said already, I recommend trying to do that quiz. It's not due until Sunday. So there are people that jump right in. I had a student already tell me they tried to do it yesterday. And I said, how could that be? How did you go through all that material already? I don't think so. No. Oh, it's a quiz. And the quiz in their mind means something that, oh yeah, quiz, not very serious. No, it's a quiz. But guess what? You want to take it seriously, okay? Now, anything to me, if I'm thinking right, that affects my GPA is serious, no matter how small. Now, with the course introduction, I said, see module 1 for details. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute. So hold on to your hats. And then it goes and starts with the next week, the following week, rather, from there. And then we'll go here. We have another lecture. Our first lecture, again, is next week. This is not a lecture today. This is an open house. And the purpose for an open house is to give you my expectations for the quarter at the beginning so that you don't have any confusion. Now, I did say this earlier, but I'll say it again. And you do your research, which is required. I already talked about that. Make sure that you do not use Wikipedia. You will lose points. Wikipedia is very unreliable. It is a word-based website. People can change the information around, so don't use it. You will lose points for that. So now let's go through some important points. I'm not going through everything in the syllabus. You could read it on your own. It has information starting at the beginning, basic information about me, and a reminder of what I just said a little earlier. You'll find out about me that there's information all over the place. Now, remember a general description of this course. I'm tipping something off to you. A general overview of U.S. corrections, jails, and prisons, institutional procedures, and recent innovations in offender treatment. Students are introduced to correctional philosophies, practices, procedures. The concepts of retribution and rehabilitation are examples. You already know that because you're doing that now. And so for residential courses, which you don't have to worry about, this includes field work. We don't have that anymore, so you don't have to worry about that, okay? So those of you already been through J100, that was a pretty tough course, but it introduced you to get you ready here. Now, the text is in here. Now, you're already been talking about discussions, and we've already explained my position on discussion posts, so I won't spend a lot of time there. Tells you your due dates. We already spent time on that, so I'm going to skip over that. But I will say this to you, your additional course requirements. Check your course schedule for assigned reading and due dates. I've already told you that. Let me move this up a little bit. There we go. Discussions, you already know about that. And then written assignments, and then quizzes. There will be 5 of them throughout the quarter. 5. Each one is 10. Each quiz will contain 10 questions. You want to do well on it. I'll show you why in a minute. Your course project. You'll select one of the 4 areas of corrections. One of the 4 areas of corrections. I'll tell you what those 4 areas are in just a minute. One of the 4. The 4 areas. If I don't mention an area as one of the 4, don't ask me, can I do that as my project? And interview a staff member and agency of your choice. That's pretty much the bulk, but you got research and other things that go with it. And then your final exam, 50 multiple choice questions. But I repeat again, I promise you, I've been teaching this course several quarters, and it never fails, never fails. Somebody comes back and asks me a question, which I'll elaborate on in just a minute. One of 4 areas of corrections. This is introductions to corrections. And then, and I'm not being facetious, I'm being real because I've seen what happened. Reminds you again of the things that I told you earlier, and you'll see it there. Now, here's the grading criteria we're broken down. I already gave you the rubric. Notice this, you got 220 points for discussions, which means you have 20 points each week, 10 for initial posts, 10 for reply posts. And again, I appreciate extra posts for reply, but guess what? You won't get any extra points. But guess what? I'll get to know who is, and I can tell you almost every time, the people that put the extra posts also seem to be the people who do the best in written assignments. Not on my criteria, but because their work ethic is demonstrated. Very, 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 very important. Very, very. Oh, Professor Wright, you're tough. I says, I'm not tough. I says, I'm firm, fair, and consistent. You'll learn about why I said that later in this course. But, and you won't learn it from me, but you'll understand why I said it. Some of you who work in corrections might already know why I said it. But written assignments consist of 305 points, or nearly 40% of your grade. Okay? So, course project, 21.2. Now, you said, well, wait a minute, that's a small percentage. No, it's not. It is not. That's the difference in a A, a B, or a C. Trust me. Then your quizzes. Is a small percentage, but you still want to do well. Your final exam is a small percentage, but that's 5. Just think about if you didn't do well on these 2. Then you've missed 11.5 points out of the point total. But very important that you do your stuff on time and you do them well. Don't get psyched out by, oh, this is a small percentage. I can sacrifice this in favor of that. Hey, that's not a good way to think, because you're going to carry that whole kind of process into doing things once you become employed, and that's not a good thing. That will get you terminated or possibly a reduction in pay. Now I want to make my announcement. My goal is to get you up here, A to A minus. If not, I want to keep you in the B's. Under that, here's what I want to say. Do not, I repeat, do not, I repeat, do not, and I already told my academic dean that I'm firm with this. Do not call me or ask me or email me, what do I need to do to get a C in your class? I will not answer you. I won't respond to you. I'm telling you up front, don't do it. Because I'm not going to tell you how to be average. Because let me tell you what happens with average people. They get caught in the shuffle. And guess who ends up succeeding? Those who are above average. The way I made it into a good law school, Northwest University School of Law, is I didn't have that philosophy when I was in college. And I'm going to talk about the experiences I had to deal with when I went through school, so that you won't think that just because you have problems that you run into, that should stop you. We'll talk about that at the very end. But I'm saying again, do not ask me that question. Please don't. And I'm not, I had a student that one time they wrote in my evaluation that they contacted me to ask me a question about how to get a certain grade, and I didn't answer them. I said no comment. That was what I said, because I already had said from the very beginning. So that student went to the dean, and the dean told them, Professor is right. We don't produce C students in this school. Students produce C students, and C students don't go very far. That's it. And then the final thing I'm going to say about that is this, is that when employers are looking for employees, do you think they're looking for the C student, or are they looking for the A and the B student? I don't have to ask you to answer that. You already know the answer to that. Accept it and know it, okay? It was the way it was when I was coming up, and it's the way it is now. And guess what? It's the way it's definitely going to be, because the job market is getting harder and tougher. There's more competition. Only the best will get the best, period. And that's all I'm going to say on that. So now let's get down to, these are things that I will do. I will respond to you pretty fast. It says within 48 hours. I hate messages that pile up. I already gave you my contact information. This says here, now I want to point this bullet point out number 3 to you so you'll understand something about me up front. It says, my responsibility is to conduct a synchronous learning session during the term or quarter as designed by the course requirements using the Vital Classroom software provided. You know what that means? That means 1 lecture. Guess how I can satisfy that with today? That means that I would be complying with all the rules, all the requirements, whatever my contract says, that I'm supposed to do for students by doing this open house. And that means that I don't have to do any more after that. But that's not how I roll. I used to have lectures every week, but hearing from the attendance of 64 students in this class and the number of students that are here, I made a decision to go every other week. And that's where I do it. And by the way, just so you know, I will do the lecture even if none of you show up. Now, somebody said, why you tell them that? I told them that because the fact that I'm showing you I'm committed. So guess what? Don't you think that I'm doing it for you, should also demonstrate to me how interested you are in this topic and that you want to pick my brain, you want to get as much information so that you can be the best at what you do. Oh, I've got students like that. I've got a student that she was in my class years ago when I was residential. She ended up graduating. She was a lieutenant in corrections at Stateville Corrections, and she ended up, taking me, and I became her mentor. She graduated with honors, went on, got her bachelor's. Now she is a major, which means she actually runs the facility, a male facility at that, and has been there for years. She also now wants to follow in my footsteps. She wants to become a criminal lawyer. So I'm helping her with that as well. But I'm trying to say this is because she was a student who kept, I responded to her. She was actually on my advisory board for a while to talk to students who want to be correction officers. And I've been talking to her about possibly coming to be at one of my sessions. But I'm not having her take her time to come if I have 2 students or 1 student. I'm definitely not going to take it if there's no students. And so that are the kind of things. And I'm saying this now so that everybody who listens to this archive, they will understand what I'm talking about, and those of you who are here. All right. So now, let's get to transferable skills. Now, what are transferable skills? The name tells you what it is. Skills that are transferable. Transferable from your school to where? To wherever you want to go. You want to go become a probation officer, parole officer, a corrections officer, a lawyer, law enforcement, whatever you want to do. These are all skills that are going to be necessary to have you be proficient in. And that employers, we've discovered that our advisory board members, who are actual employers, have demonstrated and said to us, the people that we want to hire are people who demonstrate that they're proficient in transferable skills. And these are the transferable skills. The first one is communication. Oh, that speaks for itself. You have to be able to communicate with people. You're going to be dealing with all kinds of people from all areas of life, people who don't even speak the same language. You're still going to have to communicate with them in some shape, form, or fashion. But communication is so important. One of the people you're going to have to communicate right off the bat with is the person that's interviewing you for your job. We were together today, my regional dean and my academic dean on our campus, Romeoville, and we were discussing how, when students are interviewing for positions, that how they come across and how, not just how they dress, but how they come across to the interviewer, and how sometimes they're very docile, looking around and, not paying attention to what's going on, looking more at the plaques on the wall, the pictures on the wall, not making eye contact, not into it. When I always went for job interviews, I was always, I was a leaner. I leaned forward. And I leaned forward not because I was trying to see anything. Leaning forward demonstrates that you're into it. You're moving toward it. And I'm not talking about leaning so I fall over, but you know what I'm saying? It's body communication and oral communication. You're certainly going to have to do written communication because you're going to have to fill out papers. You're going to have to submit resumes. You're going to have to submit writing samples and all these kind of things. So we want you to be proficient in communication. That's why we use things like Grammarly. That's why we check your grammar. That's why we check for plagiarism. That's why we are teaching you how to write, okay? As a As you should know, you're going to write many reports. Those reports are oftentimes going to end up in courts of law, and they're going to be exhibits in court. Critical thinking, I've already talked about that a little bit. Critical thinking means you actually have taken the material, you've applied what the assignment is calling for, and you take it and you analyze it. You don't just take what you found some author or somebody wrote, but you also have put your spin, your position on it, and those kinds of things. The fact of the matter is critical thinking is something that's natural to me because I went to law school. I learned under a method called the Socratic method, based upon Socrates. And the way that you learn there is you were asked a question, and you provided an answer to that question. And then there was another question that came until finally you got to the essence of what the whole idea of what it is you're trying to achieve. And I do that naturally now. And that's the way I teach my students too. I don't like to spoon feed you guys. Sometimes people want to be enabled. No, critical thinking is something that you should be able to do yourself and develop it. Now they're starting to do it in the grammar schools. My baby girl, who's 9, she's in 4th grade. Yeah, I'm 67. I got a 9-year-old. But the point of the matter is this, is that she comes back and she'll ask questions. I said, wow, she kind of blows me away. But that's because her curiosity or critical thinking is kicking in early. So by the time she gets older, it'll be a natural process. Employers are looking for that. That's what they want, okay? Digital fluency. I already told you my age. I went through school entirely without any of this. There was no World Wide Web. There was no internet. I graduated 39 years ago from law school. There was no such thing. There was no iPads. There was no cell phones. There was no Google. We had to go this old-fashioned way to the library. We had to use the Dewey Decimal System, which has nothing to do with chemistry. We had to learn about books. We had to carry huge books. Now you can put your books in the palm of your hand. I have here in my hand here a tool, which is a you can see it. It is, let's see. Let me stop sharing for a minute. Okay. Okay, let's see. Okay, so now let me share again. So you can see it. You can see this in my hand. This is a phone. And in here I have apps that you know about. And why are you talking about this, Professor Wright? Because I'm trying to show you something. Is that you're going to learn how to do these things. And so I have in here, right here, I just hit an app. These are my textbooks from my classes. I can open them up and read them right here. I didn't have that when I was in school, but now it is here, and it's the way you're going to operate now. You're going to have to learn. You have to learn how to use different kind of systems like WebEx. You're going to have to learn how to use systems such as the classes that we're teaching out of right now. You're going to have to learn how to use the spreadsheets and all those things. You're going to have to learn how to use Outlook, all those Word documents, all of that. Anyway, that's digital fluency. So we want you to be fluent in that. Then diversity, because you're going to work with people, as I said earlier, from different walks of life, different backgrounds, different situations, circumstances, and you're going to have to deal with them, particularly in our field, criminal justice. And I will say this to you, is that you're going to have to learn that people are different. People approach things differently. People have a right to be who they are. Their their sexual preference, their religious beliefs, their political beliefs. As long as there's no violence or nothing involved, peaceful protests and things like that, people have to understand. And I certainly understand those kinds of things because I posted on Facebook, which, by the way, if any of you want to become my friends on Facebook, feel free. I have a lot of students that are. Go to Richard Wright, JD, and send me a friend request. And sometimes I reject them if I don't know the person, but I'll look and see what they're about. And then if I see something relating to Rasmussen, then I'll take them. But my point being is this, is that I grew up in the era of Jim Crow. Some of you don't even know what that is. That is a movement that said that black people could not be in classrooms with Caucasians, that we couldn't eat at the same restaurants, that we couldn't go to movie theaters and be on the main floor. We had to be up in the top, that we had to use washrooms differently. We couldn't drink from the same water fountains. There's all those kind of things. I grew up seeing that. I saw that, okay? And so I dealt in marches and civil rights movement and protests and things like that. And that made it possible for me to become a lawyer and go to law school. Show you one thing. I have in my hand here, and I hope you can see this. This is a video of a movie that I was looking at the other night called Loving. And it's based on a case called Loving versus Virginia, a landmark Supreme Court case that said that couples should be able to marry whoever they desire, regardless of their race. At this time, a Caucasian guy married a black female in Virginia, and they were arrested and charged with violating the law. But the law was on the books around other places too. Just think, 1967, I was 17 then. It's amazing to me. But here's my point, is that we still have people today who don't understand that and don't accept that people have a right to be who they are from their culture. And so what I am saying to you is you're going to work with people from different positions. Just because you don't agree with them, don't mean you have to hate them. You want to appreciate them and learn. Our country is a melting pot. This whole issue about immigration and debate and all of that, the country, when I grew up as a kid, we used to be told this is a melting pot, okay? People were from everywhere. And so the point of the matter is that continually, we want you to learn how to appreciate that in your work. Then you're going to work in teams. You're going to work with people from different areas. You're going to work with probation people. You're going to work with corrections people who are parole officers and so forth. You're going to learn about all these different ideas. You're going to deal with defense attorneys, prosecutors, police officers. You're going to deal with all areas. Forensic people, you're going to deal with scientists, you're going to deal with educators, and everybody's going to be, it all works in teams. So you're going to have to be proficient in working in a team and bring to the table whatever it is that you are good at. Ethics, I'll make my announcement that we have a problem in criminal justice with ethics. Our communities, many, particularly in the minority community, don't trust law enforcement. Why? Not because there's something wrong with them, but there's something wrong with some of the people who are operating in the system. I was a lawyer for some of those people who got caught in trouble like that. People who took bribes, people who dealt in corruption, people who racial profile people, or believed that because a person was a certain ethnic group that they had a tendency to be a criminal. And so we have to operate with ethics. We have to recognize and appreciate and be fair with everybody. Our responsibilities professionally, we follow those guidelines. If you don't like the responsibility and ethics of a field, get out. Don't do it. Don't stay in it. It's because of money. No, because you're going to end up in trouble somewhere along the line, and there's going to be a problem for others. Then finally, information literacy. Information is all around us, but we have to be able to channel that information into an organized fashion to achieve a goal that we're trying to accomplish. So we want you to be good at doing that. I'm very good at learning how to do that. When they told me back to digital that I came to the campus to teach residentially, and then they said they were teaching online, I said, oh, I don't know if I can do that. Oh, that was a quick thought. Then I said, oh, okay, let's go. And we did. And so I became very good at it, and I'm good at it now. Students, you guys will have the opportunity to demonstrate the outcome in your courses involving communication. You're going to find that out in what you're doing in your project. You're going to deal with communication. You're going to deal with critical thinking. And you're going to find that all of these different things play a role in you getting your assignment done. Okay. The only thing I'm going to skip over the attendance policy. The late assignment. Remember this. Each day your assignment is late, you can lose 10% of a grade. So let's say your grade is, the best grade you can get is 100. And you have a perfect paper and it was due on Sunday, but you turned it in on Monday. Well, now the highest you can get is a 90. Aside from anything else, just being late. And then Tuesday, now we're down to 80%. And okay, now look where we are. You're right at B minus. And then you go to 70%. You've dropped all the way from a B to a C minus. And then, you know, you get to 60 and below, you're at F. So even before you get to the 7 days, you can't. You're having a problem there. So it's important to get your assignments in on time. And, you know, I've worked a lot of hours. I don't want to hear that. And I mean it very seriously, because you're going to have to learn how to time manage. All of us have had, and you'll hear me talking about that a little bit. Trust me, you're talking to a person who understands totally with that. I'm not being hard, and I'm not being nasty. I am being real and serious, because that's going to limit your opportunities for growth and success in the chosen field that you want to go into. So 10%. Now, so that by the time you get to the 4th day, you messed up. Online discussions in the week of the module. So if you do, and it says will not be accepted, I'll accept them, but what I'll do is you won't get any points for it. So it'll be the equivalent of not accepting it. I may waive the late penalty in the case of extenuating circumstances, not with discussion posts. Hear me? But it has to be extenuating. Who determines it? Me. And I'm very fair about that. But don't try to play games. And that's not a good thing. That's a bad thing. The fact of the matter is that when you have situations that happen, and I've had some very serious ones. You know, I certainly had to deal with the issue of the hurricane for many of my Florida students in the last quarter. But even before leadership gave me direction, I assured my students beforehand that don't worry, get yourself to safety first. Don't worry about getting your assignments. Don't try to get your assignments done and throw something together just to get a grade. No. Say, we'll work this out. And it did. It happened. We worked it out. And leadership gave us some great things. That's what I like about this college, to understand those who were affected. And then I'm not going to talk about these other two things. I'm not going to talk about incomplete grades or any of that stuff. I'm not going to talk about the academic integrity policy and plagiarism. The plagiarism that I run across most time is not this kind, but the kind I usually run into have to do with Grammarly checks, and I already explained that to you. So with that, and I'm getting ready to now go into Module 1. I want to go into Module 1. First, let's look at the assignments. Okay, and it tells you, now, the correction system is made up of 4 elements. 4 elements. We haven't gotten to what I'm getting ready to say, but here they are: jail, prison, probation, parole. These are the elements of the correctional system. Okay, and then in a 2-page paper, explain each of these elements and how they fit into the correction system. Please use spelling and grammar and APA. I already told you that. I also gave you the rubric for what you need to do as well with the cover sheet, and you know when it's due. And then the discussion. We already started talking about that. 1 of 5 reasons: retribution, deterrence, rehabilitation, incapacitation, reintegration. And most of you have gone toward rehabilitation. And then tells you about responding to discussion posts and stuff like that. Then this one is one of the 5 quizzes, 10 multiple choice questions. It's 10 minutes. 10 minutes. You'll have an opportunity to complete this exam. During the exam, you'll be alerted when you've used half the time, and again, when you have 5 minutes, 1 minute, 30 seconds. And once time expires, it'll automatically be submitted. By starting this exam, you agree to not violate the academic misconduct policy. You acknowledge that your failure to do so could result in being expelled from the course. Plus, you'll also probably score very low because you're trying to find the material and information. You can't do it that fast. And you can't have a spreadsheet in front of you, because if you do, you're going to run into a problem. So how is somebody going to know? That's all right. It'll catch up with you. Trust me. So don't try to do that. That's why I suggest putting the quiz at the end. So now, it's 9:27. I know we're going to go longer, but now it's time for me to start talking about this project. So I'm going to go to the lesson content. And we describe the objectives of the week. We already reminded you of what the assignments are. And so now, introduction, course project. Hold on. Before I go there, I want to show you, take a look at the history of corrections. And if you click on these, it'll take you all the way from 1780, and it tells you at the top, all the way to the 20th century there. And you go through each of these, and it'll explain things. So do you do that on your own? All right. And then here, again, now. Okay, introduction to corrections and systems, you look at that. But now, let's go to where I want to finish with before I tell you something about myself at the very end. And this is where I want you to pay close attention. I mean, hone in. In this course, I'm reading it from the course overview, you will select uno of 4, cuatro, which is 4 in Espanol, components of the correctional system. One of the 4, probation, parole, jail, or prison. Now, I have inevitably had students to come back and start to write their project on law enforcement. And they have gotten zeros. And they say, well, why are you saying these 4? I says, you must not understand what this course is about. It's introduction to corrections. And the correction system, I didn't make up how it comes out. It either involves probation, And, you know, probation means that you don't end up going to jail, but you serve your sentence outside of jail under certain terms. Parole means you've gone in, served some portion of your time in jail or in prison, and you are released to finish the rest of it in the community. Jail is a short-term place where you go to a lot of times while you're awaiting the disposition of your case, but also if you have a sentence usually that's less than a year, you'll go to jail. Prison is long-term, and so you're going to deal with that. I'm only going to accept one of the four, period, 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 okay? So if I tell a student later on, it says, oh, I didn't know this, I says, go back and listen to the archive that you have. I had one student tell me I don't have enough time to do that. I just do it with my hands. It says, I can't help you. So they said I wouldn't answer their question. I said, I did answer your question, but I want you to go back and look because I took the time to make sure. And guys, the only reason I'm saying this, doing it this way, is because I've taught this 4 or 5 quarters in a row, and it has never failed that I have somebody to come back and miss this important starting point. And I started them and not being, one student accused me of being sarcastic because I said, what's the title of this course? They said, well, what's that have to do with my project? I said, please just answer my question. I want to help you. And then they said, Introduction to Corrections. I said, what does law enforcement have to do with corrections? Well, they put people in jail, and then I said, but that's not corrections what they do. Anyway, that's it. Schedule an in-person interview. Now, listen to this. I know what many of you are going to say. Schedule an in-person interview so you can learn firsthand what it's like to work in the field. Ask if you can also tour the facility or agency. Now, setting this assignment up, we recognize due to security and data privacy issues, some agencies may not be able to accommodate more than an interview. An in-person interview is optimal. That's the best. But however, a telephone interview may be acceptable with your instructors for approval. Listen to me. I've already given it. You have my permission. Don't call me and say, or contact me and says, it says in person, I want to know, can I do a telephone interview? I'm going to tell you once again, go back and listen to the archive. Yes, 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 yes. You will have some assigned interview questions. Hold on. But we'll also explore those of interest to you. Here's the deal. There are certain things you want to know. In addition to your interview, you will have research. That's why I said into the background of your agency and possible solutions to the challenges as identified by your interview. That means providing citations, references, and things of that nature. Now look at how we break it down. This project, remember I told you about transferable skills? Here we go. Communication. Working on this project, you'll have an opportunity to display your competency in writing, reading, and oral communication skills. You will need to maintain a professional manner while conducting the interview. You will also be demonstrating the effectiveness use of grammar, sentence structure, punctuation, and spelling in your final report. There are many resources available to help you, and we've already been talking about those. Then dealing with diversity and teamwork. Through your interview questions, you'll develop a better understanding of how to work collaboratively with people from various backgrounds and perspectives. That's where we go. Okay. So now we get back to, so now I've given you the parameters of the assignment. Now, let's break it down. I already told you rubrics. Week 1. You see this? This is not highlighted. That's because that's what I just did. Introduction to the project and field visit. Week 2. Select your agency / contact person. Write that information. Agency, contact person. And when you put your contact person in, don't just put their name. Put their email, their phone number, and, you know, the name of the agency, and, you know, what they do, and that kind of thing in there. So then, week 3, you're getting ready for the next thing. 4 is agency overview and background. Again, you have a rubric for each of these, 2, 4, 7, and 9. I already showed you that. Interview report, and then finally your final submission. Now, then we go down further. And these are the requirements. Here are the required interview questions. And I suggest you break them down. And don't just what are your minimum requirements to be hired for your position. Don't just give a short statement. Elaborate. Elaborate. Same thing with the next question, and the next question, and the next question. Okay? What are the possible solutions? This will be the basis for your final research conclusion section of your project. But you still want to get that in your interview with your questions. In addition to these, there should be a minimum of 3 questions of your choice. That's in addition to that. So what does that mean? Basically 8 questions. Thought out issues, guys. Research into the agency. And then they tell you what information that you need to be discovering. Now, we're dealing with ethics and professional responsibility. Remember, once again, we get back to what I told you earlier, these transferable skills. As a professional, you are going to be expected to understand and apply ethical and professional principles where you're employed. I already said that. As part of your review, the agency you choose to research include their mission statement. Don't tell me they don't have one. They do. Ask if you can. They'll provide it. A lot of times it's on their website. And functions. Digital fluency. This is exercising it. As you research into your agency, you need to access at least one website that provides you general information about the agency. The importance of digital fluency continues to be identified as a necessary skill by employers. I said that already. To continue to develop these skills, you are asked to include a minimum of 3 resources. See, 3 resources: a book, a journal article, a website must be utilized in addition to your interview. Don't just give me your interview. The paper must conform to APA guidelines in text citation and contain a reference page and a cover sheet. More information can be found about APA. We already talked about that. And then the last transferable skill, information literacy. Look at what I told you earlier. You will be expected to identify the relevant information associated with your research and incorporate into your final project. Remember, your resources need to be credible. Did you hear me? Your resources need to be credible. And they give the example that I said. I almost fell out of my chair when I first taught this. I said, wow, I didn't write this, but this is true. For example, Wikipedia is not considered a credible resource. Many of my students are saying, oh, yeah, you said that. I know. As you complete your research, critically evaluate your sources for possible biases. In other words, look to see who's putting the report together. There's certain agencies, certain organizations that will be putting together some of the resources that you use. That's like, for example, if you're going to write about whether milk is good, and then you see that the study that you're using to justify milk is good was funded by the dairy farmers of America. What do you think? So that's what we're talking about. That's an idea, just showing you what I'm talking about. And then each assignment, that's each of the ones I told you, leading up to the final assignment, is evaluated and graded independently. And I already gave you the criteria. For further information, please ask me, post ideas and questions in the general course questions and I'll be happy to. Or you can do what I said earlier. So, and then that's it. And there's some more about tutoring. Now, at this point, I'm back in the classroom. I have given you everything from A to Z that you need to be successful in this course. I have provided you with all the details. I provided you with the information. The course project is no longer this mysterious thing that's right there in front of you, but now I've elaborated on it and put emphasis on it and explained it and broke it down and showed you how connecting the transferable skills apply to it. I've done that. Now I'm here to help you navigate through. But once again, this is a very valuable session for you. You can save yourself a lot of trouble by saying, I got this one. I'm going to go back and check that. Because your answers to 99.9% of your questions have been given today in what I have done. So now, at this point, before I go into concluding, give me a few minutes to conclude by telling you something that I started out by talking about. Adversity is the springboard to success, and start strong and finish strong. Any questions regarding the project or written assignment from you, Dion, or Mariah? You can type it in the chat box. Any questions? Anything that's still, don't be ashamed either, because trust me, if there's a question you have, sometimes it's a question that I can put in a different way so that somebody else can learn from it too. Anything? Or, okay, Mariah. Okay. Okay, Dion, okay. Take your thing off of privately, and so everyone. But that's try to remember that for the future. Take your settings so everyone can see it. Okay. All right. So now, having said that, now let's go back to what I said in my announcement. At the end of every announcement for the week, you're going to see my motto: adversity is springboard success. And this is going to give me about 10 minutes to share this with you. I'm 67 years old, but it was 60 years ago, Memorial Day, which was in 1957. My mom and dad had a guy that was living with them, with myself and my 5 younger sisters, and he had a room. Well, it turns out that he and my mom got closer than they should have and began an affair. My dad confronted the man about it, and the man got into a fight with my dad, took out a knife, stabbed him in the forehead. And when he stabbed him in the forehead, right about here, he ran out of the house. He was never arrested. He was never charged. After that, he began living in the house with us openly, sleeping with my mother. He used to beat my mother profusely, beat her so bad that her face wasn't identifiable. She would not leave him. He went to jail a couple of times, but she went back and got him, brought him back home. So I grew up in a home of domestic violence. So this happened continuously from 1957 all throughout 1962. 62, we moved from the area in Chicago we were living to another home in Gary For a while, the beatings stopped because an aunt came, and my aunt was she was pretty tough. I always tell people that the character that Tyler Perry has, Medea with the gun and all that, my aunt, that was her. And she didn't stand for it, and so he didn't try to do anything. But then she left. She left around April of 1963 to go back to Michigan, where she lived. For Memorial Day of 1963, he killed her. He killed my mother. He let her bleed to death. She wasn't in front of us, but in a car. Drove her body and parked it from Indiana to Illinois. Turned himself in. I had 7 younger sisters at that time because she had 2 more kids by this man. And he pled guilty. We were living with an aunt, not the aunt that came, but another aunt for a while in Chicago, and she didn't want us there, so my other aunt came back from Michigan, and her and her husband got a house and had it built for us in the south side of Chicago, in an area called Maple Park, in the Morgan Park area. And we began living there, all 8 of us kids. And I was 14 years old. The man who was my uncle, my aunt's husband, wanted me to take his name. I refused because I wanted to carry on my dad's name. I was the only one who could carry it on. So he ended up having problems with me, and I had problems with him, but not disrespectful. I just still, I said I wasn't going to do it. So he made it difficult for me, and so I got tired of that, so I ended up finding a person that I knew from radio. I didn't know her personally. I went and found her and asked her to be my mother, told her my story, and she became my friend. Spinning ahead years and years and years and years later, she would legally adopt me. But I was a grown man by the time she legally adopted me, but she spent a lot of time with me between that time. So anyway, I discovered when I had graduated from college, law school, and everything that my aunt and uncle had illegally adopted me. I wrote an article about it, a newspaper article that's on Facebook and a story. Anyway, and I'm doing a book about it. My identity was taken. I never used it. Even my children, I got married right out of high school. So anyway, I'm going back now to when I was 14. So the other thing that happened when I was 14 was this. This was in 64. I would find out that the man was going to be sentenced to 10 years for killing my mother. But quickly, it was doused because under the law, that meant 5. That meant 5 years. And then I was further told that for good behavior, he would serve 3.5 years and serve the rest of his time outside of prison. So I'm 14 and I'm very troubled about this. And when I get troubled, I ask questions. I was very emotional, but I asked questions. And someone told me, I don't remember who it was, they said that's just the way the legal system operates. And I asked about what does that mean? And they started telling me about these people called lawyers. And I decided I was going to find out more about that. So I went to the library at my school. I was in 8th grade and asked the librarian if she had any books about lawyers, and she said yes. So I checked out the book and spent the night in my room reading that book cover to cover. And the next day, guys, anybody I met, I said, my name is Richard Wright, and I'm going to be a lawyer. Whoa, I opened up a can of confusion in my family. They said, no, you're not, you got too many issues. You're not going to be able to do this. It's not going to happen. You're going to be very disappointed. You're going to be frustrated. But I tell you guys, I don't tell people, yes, I can. I show them, yes, I did. And so I proceeded to do what I needed to do. I was fortunate enough that when I graduated from high school, one of my friends, who I ended up living with their parents for a little while, knew someone at a law firm. And right out of high school, I took a job in the mailroom, big law firm. And I started in there, and I met people such as the founder of McDonald's, Ray Kroc. And Ray Kroc learned about me, and he told me I was going to make it. He encouraged me. But I told the lawyers at the law firm that I was Richard Wright and I was going to become a lawyer. I enrolled in school at night in a junior college because I couldn't get any help. And I got married right away in 1970. I had started school in 69. 71, my first child comes. 72, my second child comes. I ended up battling and struggling financially, but I kept going to school at night. I would carry 12 to 16 hours. You could go back and you check, I was on the dean's list. I didn't have a car. I drove 2 buses and a train, L train, to get to work. I studied on them. At that time, there was nothing digital, so I had books, big books, and I had to read those books. And I would just be tired. And at the end of the bus, the train line, they would wake me up. They got to know me because I was the kid. It would make people be quiet on the train so I could study. So I went through that. And the law firm began to see that I was serious. So they made me a file clerk. And then it came an opening for the law librarian, and they asked me would I be the law librarian. And then when I was law librarian, I took it upon myself to not just be a custodian of the books, but to read the books and start learning how the lawyers were researching, how they reached their decisions and directions they went, the strategies. And I demonstrated that to the lawyers, and they said, we are getting you an assistant, and we're going to make you a law clerk. Today, that's called a paralegal. And I did that. In the meantime, I left the junior college, got accepted into a 4-year institution, Roosevelt University, majoring in political science. I began to study topics like introduction to criminal law. I studied things like constitutional law and other political science courses. I got business courses, accounting, marketing, and all those things. I did that at night and Saturdays as well. In the meantime, we ran out of money and the lights went out. I studied by candlelight. 8 cans of beans. Just, there was no instant rice or none of that stuff. We didn't have microwaves that didn't exist, wouldn't matter. We didn't have electricity, but I still continued. And so I kept my time moving forward. It came time for me to apply to law schools. I said, I'm applying to Northwestern, and they said, you should apply to 3 law schools. They said, you're aiming really, really high. I was the wrong person to tell me that. So I continued on. You better know it. I got accepted into Northwestern University School of Law. I wasn't waitlisted or nothing. They took me. I provided them with my story and told them what I'd gone through, and they did something they hadn't done. They invited me to the campus to visit, to see who was behind this paper. The application for admission to law school was like real thin, okay? But mine was like this thick. It was a big envelope because I had samples of my writing. I had stories I had written about my life and things I had gone through and shared that with them. And I continued on and ended up in law school. And then again, I reached a stage where it became so heavy. My wife I was married to at that time, she ended up, she was a teacher. They went on strike, and all the money was cut out, and we didn't have any temporary money. And I made a decision I was going to quit. And one of my professors, I went to talk to her about it, and she said, and she's still there now. She said, quitting is not an option, and she stood in front of the door and says, park your butt in the seat, and until you decide you're going to continue on, I'm not going to let you out of here. We can make this work. And I said, okay, I promise you, Joyce, that I will do it. And then 3 years later, of course, she was one of the first ones I thanked. And so that picture that you saw of me in the student lounge was me getting my degree from Northwestern University School of Law. While I was in law school, I met a man whose son was one of my classmates. He was a distinguished criminal defense lawyer, then became a judge, trial judge, and then appellate court judge. He suggested to me, I'm going to help you find out what happened exactly to your parents. And he took me to the courthouse, and we dug out old records. And then he made one major suggestion to me in life. He says, you want to learn about the system, become a criminal defense lawyer. You'll learn. And people thought, wow, that's odd. You'd be a prosecutor. I did not. I became a criminal defense lawyer, started representing people who were actually murderers, being successful in defending them. But I was teaching them at the same time about how it felt to families. I started into seminary and became a minister as well while going through school. So then I went through a situation where I had not taken care of some of my personal life that I needed to take care of before I got married right out of high school, and it resulted in a divorce. My first wife, we had 3 kids. The youngest one is 39 now. She's now a student at Rasmussen College studying medical billing and coding. But the point of the matter is that I went through school, and I kept going, even with all those obstacles. Well, I ended up meeting a lady and getting married to a second wife. And my second wife, her mother became the mayor of a corrupt town in the south suburbs. She asked me to be her village attorney, and I took the job on. But I told her I wouldn't take the job unless I can carry a gun. I was told I couldn't carry a gun because that would be illegal. And I said, okay, what do I need to do it legally? She said, you have to go to police academy. I said, you all going to pay? Yes. And I went. And I became a part-time police officer, never wore a uniform. I participated in drug raids. And then I would discover the chief was corrupt, and he had to step down, and another chief came in, and he needed someone he could trust. And he approached me, and I took the job on as an investigator, conducting internal affairs, dealing with the ethics and the criminal activities of the police officers, and worked with the feds, the FBI, to help. I didn't do anything, but I was there. They just told me what to do to stay out of the way, and they did it. Never had to testify any of that stuff, but I knew what was going on around me. And then I was also a village prosecutor for the town as well. And so then I went through with that, and then finally that ended, and then I ended up divorced from that woman because she took off with somebody else. But that was okay. So 23 years later, I'm married to my current wife, the one you see on the pictures. Well, the fact of the matter is that I have gone on. So I continued practicing law until 2000, and then I got serious about ministry even more. I taught special education for a number of years. I had students that now I have had been contacted back in the last year or two who really listened to me. I didn't know they were. 2 of them did real well. One became a criminal justice professional and is a youth probation officer as opposed to being a probationary. But she said it was you, Mr. Wright, that influenced me, and you didn't know it years later. So I continue still doing that. So in 2011, someone told me about a job at this college I had never heard of, Rasmussen College. And I went to the interview, and they said, we want you to teach business law. And I came in, but I told them quickly, I'm a criminal justice person. And they made me an adjunct professor following that in criminal justice. Then after that, about 2014, I ended up becoming what they call state program coordinator for criminal justice, handling all 4 campuses in Illinois, Romeoville, Mokina, Tinley Park. Mokina, Tinley Park is one campus, Aurora, and Rockford. And I did that until they changed it. And I've been teaching on classes ever since. And I love teaching, and I love sharing with my students. But I wanted you to understand and take the time to know that I empathize with every one of you when you have adversity in your life. Been there, done that. Probably stuff I've been through, none of you will ever go through, and I never wish you would. But the point of the matter is guess what, guys? Somebody once told me, they said, if you know how to put your pants on one leg at a time like other people, you can be successful with being a lawyer. And they were right. I have no regrets. I love what I do. I love the institution's guidelines. The mission of this school is awesome. I love the way that we are encouraged to help students, to encourage students, and our thing is student success. Student success. 2 of my favorite activities, guys, is academic awards, but my favorite is graduation, where I get a chance to hug and shake hands with many of them and meet the families. It's an exciting thing for me. So I'm saying this to you. Hey, I can guide you, but I can't make you. All the resources that I have, I'm willing to pass on to you and share, even after you complete. I got students who come back to me and still ask for help and guidance. So that's it, guys. It's about 10 now, but I wanted to make sure I took the time. I said 10 minutes, but I get kind of emotional whenever I talk about this. Obviously, I mean, but it'll never go away, and I'll never stop helping. As I was telling my dean today, I said, I love what I do because of the impact that I can have on the future and the lives of the students that I come into contact with. Thank you. Thank you, Mariah. I have my oldest granddaughter. That's her name, Mariah Ashley. She's a graduate herself out of college. And so that's it, Dion, Mariah. I'm going to say good night to you guys. And again, thank you for sticking out, hanging out, and you know, if you know some of your classmates or something, thank you. Share with them and tell them, says, hey, you need to come to these lectures because they'll benefit you. Our professor is committed. So, hey, let's show him that we are committed to as well. You're paying good money. I want to maximize your profits. I want to give you a business term, ROI. Do you know what ROI means, either of you? Do you know what ROI means? Mariah, no? Dion, do you know what it means? Okay, return on investment. Return on investment. In other words, you get out what you put in. you put $10 in the bank and you go to take out 100, they're gonna say, excuse me, you're $90 short here. Well, guess what? Student told me I want an A. I said, then let's do this. I don't give them out. I didn't. My degree was not given to me. I did it the old-fashioned way. I earned it. And all the knowledge I have, I learned it. And knowledge is power. And with that, good night.